This is the podcast on chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia. So if you look at what are called the chronic multi-symptom illnesses, there are about 500 million Americans that have some of these related illnesses. And, we'll talk a little bit about some of these in this class, other classes, but the ones we'll focus on today: chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia. But you can see there are other types of chronic illnesses. Irritable bowel, migraines, people who have migraines and tension headaches, people who have chronic low back pain, sick building syndrome, people who are exposed to chemicals and mold in the workplace or at home, and of course we can't forget Gulf War related illnesses. These were more common from the exposures in the 90s and early 2000s, where the veterans were returned home with these chronic fatigue-like illnesses. So when you look at a map of where people have chronic fatigue, you can see we are not one of the higher. For once, South Carolina is kind of in the mid-pack of this, so it does tend to be a little higher in northern type of climates versus the South. So finally a map where South Carolina is not one of the worst. So when you look at the definition, and that's part of the problem with a lot of these illnesses, is people need to meet the full diagnostic criteria for these illnesses. So if you don't meet the diagnostic criteria, you're not classified to have it, that insurance probably isn't going to pay for it. So you could see on this slide it says at least 4 of these 8 symptoms for at least 6 months. So they're kind of vague, and you can see that they overlap with other different types of illnesses. You know, malaise, just feeling bad, people who don't sleep well, memory loss, joint pain, headaches, lymph nodes, sore throats. So I mean, it can be a result of many different things. So it has to be recurring, and it has to be at least 6 months. So lots of times when people are undergoing tests, they try to rule out other types of illnesses that can mimic chronic fatigue. And that's the problem, with many of these, the symptoms can be kind of vague. People could have something like hepatitis B or hepatitis C. Hypothyroidism often leads to fatigue. Do they have sleep apnea? Is that why they have unrefreshing sleep? Depression, mental illnesses. Do they have eating disorders? Do they have substance abuse? Or are they just overweight and inactive and they just don't have any energy? So other causes of chronic fatigue, the Epstein-Barr virus, that's associated with mono. If any of you have ever had mono, you probably have the virus in your body. Herpes virus. So again, this is a different type of herpes, not like genital herpes, potential links to HIV, gastrointestinal viruses, German measles, people who have chronic yeast infections, mosquito-borne illnesses like West Nile viruses, disturbances in cortisol, lightheadedness, and then of course also multiple allergies can have an effect on chronic fatigue. Treatment. There's a lot of, junk out there on the internet, gadgets, devices, things that don't work. People can seek alternative and holistic treatments, but are these really studied, and are they studied, in a scientific way? Nutritional supplements have not really been shown to do anything for chronic fatigue syndrome. A lot of people who have chronic fatigue can be successfully treated with antidepressants. Depression can go along with many chronic diseases. Cognitive behavioral therapy, so helping people plan, relapse prevention, problem solving, that is actually very effective for a lot of chronic diseases. We maybe want to add some things like relaxation techniques such as meditation, deep breathing, yoga type of exercises, and of course exercise, which is why we're here.